Who has 100-word summary of all the trouble you guys got into last week?
We didn't get in any trouble at all. Everything went fine.
Well,
we
Dunfoss
got
is a new king. Dunfoss is a new king, and I think we're planning to skip town and wait for that to percolate and become terrible. But I think it might already be becoming terrible because Journey's our boss now, apparently.
Yep. We were constricted into the Magic Investigative Service.
Kind of. King Ten Sails established a new an Office of Magical Secrets, separate from Tylestinus Abt. The idea being to hunt down dangerous magics and bring them under purview of the crown in Dunfoss. And he's placed Journey at the head of this office, and he plans to use you guys as kind of investigators along that line, since you've proven yourself so many times in the past.
Seeker's all for it because we're under purview of the crown, so if a few magical secrets fall into our pockets, no harm, no foul.
That's an interesting interpretation of the king. Sure.
That's not going to get us in trouble one bit.
The king is a pirate.
No, not anymore. The king is a king.
I didn't vote for him.
And within a few days of his coronation, it becomes clear, like out in the city, that mentions of him as the Pirate King are starting to become quashed. It's become very clear, although he hasn't given an official edict, he hasn't talked to you guys directly about it, but his intention is to try to suppress this idea that he is a usurper pirate king, and he intends to actually rule as king of Dunfoss. Whether or not he'll be successful in this, because he still has many detractors in town who, once they learn of this, are just going to redouble their efforts.
Also, in addition to that, I might have almost killed the Ponce.
So we left things pretty badly with the Ponce.
Connor got himself fired.
Oh no, you're fixing this, Connor. You're not getting off that easy.
No, he is not. Connor is not fixing this. Connor is staying in the corner.
That's what we're
Connor,
calling.
you are not allowed to talk to customers.
That's just his name now, Corner Connor.
The Connor Corner?
He lives in the Connor Corner.
Oh, no.
Gus, you're not allowed to be alone in a room with customers.
The rules are starting to get a little thick here. We might have to actually
write them down. Let's codify this a bit. I have never... It's just that one customer, I think.
It only takes one.
It only takes one.
I mean, he's the one who you're into for 33,000 gold. So.
Uh-huh.
All right. And you've told King Ten Sails that investigations are taking you to Blue Wyrm for some length of time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He has a job for you while you're in Blue Wyrm. And he is very loath to negotiate any sort of payment. He is not going to sign any kind of contract you put in front of him. As far as he's concerned, Flumph Inc. and the Crown of Dunfoss working together is a symbiotic relationship.
Sure.
And we will send them a bill for our expenses.
Well, that's not going to work because he knows you're going to Blue Wyrm for unrelated investigations. However, he has a job to be done in Blue Wyrm. Because Blue Wyrm doesn't sit on a coastline, this is not something he was easily able to do himself. But now he has resources far in excess of just being the best pirate ever. He tells you that one of the founders of Blue Wyrm served as a pirate captain, and her exploits are legendary on the oceans. She served as a captain of a ship called the Adric's Honor. And what he wants is the final surviving ship manifest from the Adric's honor. He knows that it was purchased at auction in Blue Wyrm by a wealthy retired adventurer named Kinzeros. Kinzeros Dunestrider. Kinzeros is a sand elf that has relocated to Blue Wyrm. Blue Wyrm has very strong ties with Kiska. But he doesn't know much else about Kinzeros specifically, other than he maintains a manor in Blue Wyrm. And he runs a tap house out of his own manor. The tap house is called the Jianj Kar. Jianj Kar is a type of really harsh liquor from the deserts. So it's kind of a themed tap house that he runs out of his own manor. He's never met this person, and other than that, he has no idea what this job's going to entail, but he knows where the manifest is, and he's thinking if you go to Blue Wyrm and come back with that manifest...
A little something in for us.
Of course.
Do we have any funds for the purchase of the manifest, if it comes to that? Like, does he have a budget?
If it's as simple as that, he'll send a cartload of gold down to make the purchase. Okay. He doesn't think it's going to be as simple as that.
Rarely ever is.
And we're, of course, happy to be at the Crown service, but I just want to warn him beforehand that we have someone has a very large interest in our company, and if there's a conflict of interest, we might have an issue. And I'll just give him the rundown on the Ponce and the debt we owe him.
When Seeker
what do you tell him? What do you guys tell him specifically?
I don't want us to make it seem like we're asking him for a bailout, because that's not what Lucius wants.
Oh, 10 Sail doesn't give bailouts anyway. You already know this.
Seeker says it in the tone of like, hey, this is the situation, and this is a problem that we currently have. And man, it'd be great if we didn't have this problem.
So what you know about 10 Sails, having worked for him in the past, is if he tells you that this is no longer a problem for you, what that means is he's found a way to profit off of it.
Great.
So he tells you this is no longer a problem for you.
Fantastic.
Oh, no. Seeker.
No, listen, if the answer to this becomes he gives the man his noble title and he has a man working for him, awesome. Wipe my hand clean. We did our job.
What if he just buys the debt?
I don't care. We're already working for him.
Connor very pointedly says nothing. He has his arms crossed and is just staring down at the floor.
You sure you don't want to tell? You don't want to tell the king you don't like him?
That he might be a fan.
Yeah. Like when did you want to just like completely destroy all of our business? Like that was.
Before the meeting with 10 Sails, and you can assume this happens before any large meeting, I ask Connor whether he thinks the person is a fae or not before we go into the room. He says yes, he's not allowed to go in the room.
Oh, I have to actually have you guys meet with like a fairy princess or something now.
Oh.
So
it's going to end with a TPK.
What is the response then? He gives you this task to complete while you're in Blue Wyrm.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go for it.
Do you make any requests of the king before you leave?
Can we have some badges showing our status?
Dude.
You want badges?
Yeah.
Displaying what status? Like king's best friends?
We don't need no stinking badges.
I don't know, some sort of official connection with the crown.
He tells you that the benefits for him of having Flumph Inc. working so closely is that the unofficial capacity in which you work for him smooths over a lot of things that otherwise would be problems.
Seeker will nod at that.
Yeah, it's the fact that
that's a reasonable answer.
The fact that you don't work for him is why he likes you working for him.
So basically, if we get caught, he disavows all knowledge, and we just languish in prison.
It's not necessarily. He just trusts you not to get caught.
If we get caught, the campaign becomes firm notice. Got it.
Oh my god. I'm so glad that we did not tell him what happened down underneath the palace. because
Listen. If we get caught, I'm sure the king has many unofficial friends, and we might get to meet some of them.
They're very colorful characters indeed. So just to draw the clear line, Journey is working for him in an official capacity. Like she has a title and she has an office under her to organize. You guys are like contract workers that he brings in from time to time if need be.
Does Journey's new office, do the officers in that office that do not include us, apparently, do they have a fancy title like the Black Jackets or the Moss Caps?
Not yet. This organization is still ongoing. The coronation was just... let me get my calendar up here.
They're going to be the Brown Pants?
The coronation was on the 18th, which, by the way, was a choreo day, but he did not send anybody around for you.
Weird.
Oh yeah, I just need to get caught up on what today's date is. My notes are a little off. The last one I have is...
Today is Naranter, the 19th.
The 17th is the last day I wrote down on my ledger.
Yeah, so the 17th was the day before the coronation. That's the day you guys had your little speed bump with Choreo Fireblood, shall we say. Let me get my notes out here. Bear with me just one second. This NPC's name is not in my notes either. I'm the best at this.
You are D&Ding good.
The best.
Don't feel bad. I had a NPC in the game I'm running that I couldn't remember his name, so everybody just decided he was Hans Gruber from Die Hard, and that's what they called him. They called it like Hans because he's German. So like Hans Gruber, and then I found his name, and his first name actually was Hans.
Nice.
And I was so upset.
That's a victory. No, that means that you planned ahead.
That means you won. You won at D&D.
So here's the difficulty. Is your guys' job, you want to go down to Blue Wyrm and investigate this portal and get back in time to participate in the magical games. That's a very tight schedule. Because that's only a month away. So you're not going to have hardly any time for actual lollygagging in Blue Wyrm once you get there. Oh, I don't want to load this next map because Florian's thing is still on it. I don't want to look at his stupid face. Here, I'll just do this. Everybody close your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, put on a blindfold.
Yeah, just close your eyes. And then I'll just get rid of that. And then I'll just paste that in. And then... There you go. Now you can open your eyes. Perfect. Oh my god, why have you done this? No! No!
Oh,
no.
my eyes!
There. Now we know what lives in the mountains over there.
Just a Florian kaiju off in the distance.
I'm
Florian,
sorry,
Fivian, Sixian.
Ouch.
Alright, so it's about a 10-day journey along the road to Blue Wyrm, and it's more or less uneventful. But it means that figure 10 days there, 10 days back, you're only going to have about a week in the city. If you stay longer than that, you're going to be returning to Dunfoss too late to participate in the magical games, which some of you have actual obligations in the games to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody doing anything special along the journey, or can I just erase these days from my calendar?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
The first of the next month is tax day, so if you want to go ahead and erase whatever taxes Linda's in charge of paying.
Sure.
You can just assume that at this point you're still getting screwed on the taxes.
We haven't actually made any money this month, so there you go.
On the 10th day, so this morning you wake up, you're on the road. Roads are very well maintained between Dunfoss and Blue Wyrm. And in the distance, on the left-hand side of the road, as you look out to the north, you can see the remnants of this gigantic earth-moving project. The idea was to carve a river out of the land, linking the lake near what became the Free City with the ocean. And it was supposed to just carve across the continent. And reports say that this created earthquakes in the area and just completely restructured the wilderness. And it didn't work in the end. The earth is just stronger than any level 20 sorcerer in a chicken leg house could possibly be. But you can see the remnants of it, leaving this jagged, rocky hillside with this like marshland in front of it. Anytime it rains, it soaks up quite a lot of the moisture. And so the road runs a little bit to the south of that. And along the road, there are little... you see the abandoned remnants of a lot of little construction towns, which had been put up as base of operations as this project was going on many, many years ago. And one or two of them along the road are still occupied. Typically no more than a couple of families living out in the wilderness. And it's at one of these little outposts. The idea is you're going to wake up this morning, it'll be your last day of travel, and you're going to be arriving at the gates of the Free City, probably early afternoon. And Lucius,
Yes.
you recognize a man outside of this little outpost. It's the Githzerai that you rescued down in the sewers.
Yes. Yeah.
And on his back, he has a long, curved black blade in a scabbard.
I'll flag him down. Call out to him.
He's noticed you before you've noticed him. So by the time you go to flag him down, he's already moving in your direction. And as he does, he takes a knee in front of the five of you. And he tells you, I have returned from forging the weapon, as promised. And I am come to pay my debt.
Lucius glances at Connor for a moment, then back to him. Mulls it over.
What does Connor think about Githzerai?
They're fine.
Does Connor even know what a Githzerai is?
Probably.
Seeker
So,
shrugs and says thank you.
But Connor is looking to the rest of the group like, what's going on here?
Oh, we found him in a sewer. They were going to sacrifice him to a demon? I don't know.
He was just another sacrifice for the flying pig.
Yeah, also, heads up on that one, you don't have to worry about that demon anymore. We dealt with that. Devil?
He nods, and he tells you, it makes no difference, for wherever your enemies stand, they shall be cut.
Great. Glad to have you.
I like this guy. This guy's great.
Glad to have you aboard. I suppose. Well, our road takes us to Blue Wyrm today, so that's where we're headed.
And he nods curtly and falls in behind you.
Seeker falls back next to Connor, or next to the Githzerai for a moment, and says, by the way, that's our new companion, Connor. He's a good friend of ours, but if he asks you to cut any fey creatures, you ask one of us first.
So, alright, he agrees. He doesn't owe Connor anything.
Fantastic. Love to hear it.
Yep.
And so, the lot of you arrive in the free city of Blue Wyrm. The city has some differences from Dunfoss. It's about the same size, but the population is much, much lower. Where Dunfoss has this huge, like, packed-in, dingy, tight roads and such, city with then sprawling farmland all around it, Blue Wyrm has kind of walled in the majority of its farmland. So it has much less just urban sprawl. So the population is much, much lower, but the city itself is about the same size. It'll take you about the same time to cross one end of the city to the other. It's also encircled by not one, but two crystal clear moats. Florian used to live in Blue Wyrm, and I was looking forward to explaining some of the construction of these moats that he would have been familiar with, but then Florian has died. So, none of you have ever been to Blue Wyrm before, is that correct?
I've been through Blue Wyrm. I don't think I've spent any time here.
And you're an artificer, yes? So, the construction of the moats, and I'm very, very happy to be able to explain this to you, is such that there are mechanical sluices all along it, on both the inner and the outer moats, such that at any time only parts of the moats are flooded, which allows workers in the city to apply mundane and magical forms of cleaning to the trenches that the moats flow into. So at a moment's notice, inside the city, they're able to completely flood the moat that's encircling not only the outer wall of the city, but also the inner wall of what was originally the inner city before it kind of sprawled outward. And the benefits of this is that this water is crystal clear, safe to use and drink, which is not something that you would really want to do with a naturally occurring river that runs through the middle of a city. People tend to poop in that water, and it's never clean. And then you can get bad diseases. This is considered one of the wonders of Blue Wyrm, is this very intricate system. And it was this kind of engineering that the founders wanted to apply to its entire river. Just to the northeast of Blue Wyrm sits the vast lake. The lake is about twice, again, the size of the actual city. This is an enormous inland lake that existed before the founding of the town. There were two roads that came by through here, a north-south road and east-west road, and that's where the founders originally put down their inn. So that would be right here at the center of town. They have a tower next door, which is known to be a wizard's tower. That's where you guys put down the teleportation circle to Kiska that none of the five of you know about. And then over many years after that, as the town grew in influence and prospered, a cathedral was built in the center. So that's this building here that became the seat of the high priest of Osbrim. So the two leads you guys have as you approach Blue Wyrm is Kinzieros Dunestrider and your good friend Tom Wolf, who has also been beseeching your help for like 6 months now, and you guys have been blowing him off.
Yeah, before we reach town, maybe when we're starting the journey and then when we're a day out, I'll send a couple sendings to Tom, letting him know we're coming.
Tom tells you that he's hit the blinds with his own investigations. His problem is his mentor has gone missing. And he kind of disappeared just into the night. He says he has strong evidence that he still lives. And when you tell him he's a day or two out, he implores you for assistance. He thinks the next leg of this investigation would be too dangerous for him to undertake alone, which, having previously interacted with Tom Wolf, means too dangerous to undertake, period.
Yeah, when he says that he's hit a blinds in his thing, I tell him we'll help him out when we get there, and also I tell him the person that we were looking into, if you could get some information for us about the state of the town, that'd be great too.
So the state of the town, there's not actually a central government in Blue Wyrm. There's not a king. There's not like a council of rulers. There's a ruling merchant class. Essentially, the wealthiest, most prosperous people in Blue Wyrm kind of call the shots. So the town itself kind of runs like the mob used to run Las Vegas. if you need a quick and dirty analogy. Part of the reason they're able to do this is because of their link with Kiska is so strong, which means they have an influx of goods that cannot be obtained anywhere else on the continent. So there's a lot of exoticism in Blue Wyrm. A lot of that exoticism also comes from their strong ties with the Underdark, with Gnomish, especially the Deep Gnome civilizations of the Underdark. So there are entrances to the Underdark somewhere inside the confines of Blue Wyrm, but probably none of you, the 5 of you, know the secrets of them. The city is almost too clean as you walk through it. And part of that is just the lower population in general, but it's almost like the city is made artificially nice, if that makes sense.
So, like, are we talking like Stepford Wives kind of unease?
No,
Say?
more like Disney Main Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not unpleasant or creepy. It's just like you could make Dunfoss this clean if somebody wanted to pay for the street sweepers to come out twice a week instead of never.
The place was founded by spellcasters, right? Like they probably have a strong spellcasting population. Clean up the town. Makes sense.
The High Priest of Ostrom also sits here in the cathedral. The current High Priest, what's his name? I have it here. His name is Elnid. And Elnid essentially schedules rainfall for Blue Wyrm. So people here know when it's going to rain. He's a very powerful high-level cleric who's able to control or make weather subside. And this is a neat trick, and it's one of the other wonders of the city. But colloquially, it's understood that this particular thing used to be even stronger under the purview of Ostrom, back when the High Priest controlled the now lost staff that has gone missing.
See, this sort of cleanliness is what you get when you have a town that's not afraid of spellcasting.
Actually, moving through the streets, though, there is a little bit of unease. There seems to be a lot of... first of all, the population of the place is much more exotic. Still predominantly human, but humans are a lower percentage of the overall population than it is the case in Dunfoss. Specifically, you see a lot more elves than you're accustomed to seeing out and about.
By which you mean any elves?
Right, very few actual elves. I think you guys have met more drow living in Dunfoss than you've met elves so far. But there is also a lot more philosophical debate that happens in Dunfoss. Religion is a very big thing here, but not everybody is a follower of Ostrom. And the exchange of ideas seems to be held in higher regard here than is the case in Dunfoss. So the whole city has a different texture to it than you're used to.
Why are we living in Dunfoss again?
Rent's cheap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we never get the barge out here.
Yeah, there's
You know?
nowhere to put your barge.
Yeah. Yeah, where would we put a barge?
Just
I
parking.
don't know. This place is too clean for me. I don't like most cities, but this...
Alright, so what's next?
All right, I think we meet up with Tom Wolf first. What do you guys think?
I think that's a good call.
Okay. Tom's mentor, I have his name here too. His name is Lang Mad Metal. And Mad Metal has a workshop just inside the inner wall. So Mad Metal, he's a human, but his family, back in the day, actually lived in one of the gnome kingdoms of the Underdark, and had for generations. Mad Metal is one of the one of the first or second generations that has actually lived topside. So he's known to be a very eccentric and strange individual. Alex, if you've been through Blue Wyrm before, chances are you've at least come through Mad Metal's shop.
Yeah, okay.
The outside of the shop, and it was founded fairly early on in Blue Wyrm's history, so it's inside the inner walls, like maybe around here somewhere. The outside of a shop is a spectacle, because just standing to look at it, you could swear that every piece of the outer facade of the shop moves in some way. Window panes are strung up to rotate back and forth. You have slats that open up in exchange, and it's all just vanity movement. None of it seems to serve a purpose, although it does have a very complex and intricate gutter system along the edge of its roof. The main door to the shop is just an enormous iron and wood gear. It's a wooden gear strapped down with iron along the edges, and it doesn't look to be any obvious way to open it. But this is such a common thing for new people in Blue Wyrm to see that you only have to stand outside the shop for a few moments before someone along the street points out that there's a trick to opening it and describes the actual hand motion you have to do to get the gear to roll aside and give you entrance to the shop.
Seeker waves him aside as he starts to explain. I want to figure it out for myself.
He ruins the puzzle for you. And just standing here, like, you can smell just the oil and industry off of this place. There's no sign out, but it is unmistakably Mad Metal's shop.
This looks like it's your place.
All right, so he's been missing. So why is the shop still open?
Because Tom Wolfe has been living here.
All right, let's go in.
Yeah, Tom Wolfe is holding the place down. Inside the shop, there are just... It's like walking inside of a giant clock. There are springs and sprockets and cogs everywhere. There's always motion. There's always noise. And as you enter, you see Tom Wolfe's already waiting for you. He's coming downstairs. The shop itself is rather narrow and has a spiral staircase towards the back of the main shop area. That spirals upward, and it also has a landing going down into the basement. He's coming down from upstairs. And Alex, you would notice immediately, just looking around, you can see that the shop is technically open, like business can be conducted here, but not much is these days. Like, you see a lot of tools that obviously haven't been used for a while. A lot of machines that are in the process of being renovated or repaired, but hasn't been completed yet. Tom is overjoyed to see all of you.
Does the front of the shop include a workshop or just area to sell things?
Mostly just a place to conduct business and to display objects. And a lot of what's on display here would be kind of like just minor Artificer stuff. Little magical devices or little mechanical devices or tools to build the same. The actual workshop, you imagine, probably he has two. Probably he has one upstairs and one downstairs.
Okay.
And Tom welcomes you all in. The first thing he asks is it true? News from the north. Dunfoss has a new king.
Indeed,
That's right. I'll give him the quick rundown of the election.
And he asks to be introduced to your two new friends.
Connor holds out his hand. Says Connor.
He shakes his fist. Tom Wolfe.
How do you know Flumph Inc? What's your business? What are your business dealings with them?
We don't talk about that. Anyway, this is...
We have many friends.
Connor looks at Tom.
Is he still like old and like? Did he get his legs and stuff fixed?
You can't tell. He's wearing long pants and heavy boots with iron soles, but he's walking with a cane when he comes down the stairs.
What's our Githzeris name?
Numac.
And Seeker will hold a hand out, and this is Numac.
Tom regales the story of how he met Flumph Inc. About everything that had happened, about his minor dealings with the flying pig and how they were going awry, and then how they were all stuck down in a dungeon for a while. And he describes the Snapjaw that you guys went back and captured.
Yeah, that was a thing.
All right, so Tom, what have you tried so far looking for your mentor? What routes you been down?
So, the first thing that strikes you is Tom does not seem to be completely worried. Like, he seems very, laid back is the wrong word, but he doesn't seem to be distressed too much. In fact, it looks like he's living here pretty well. He invites you upstairs into the living quarters. It's a 3-story house. So you have the shop on the bottom story, there's a basement underneath, and there's 2 levels above the shop. The first level is where he's been living, and from here, the spiral staircase opens up into a landing with a narrow hallway with several rooms off to either side that you see that Tom is currently occupying. One of these he's turned into his own workshop. Another is his sleeping quarters. Another is the guest quarters. Another is a kind of general storage room. He tells you that the supplies that are delivered to the shop on a regular basis have not stopped. Apparently, the payment is still being made somehow through some infrastructure that he has no control over and does not understand. But that he has changed the nature of the supplies because he's not actually doing his mentor's work. He has less use for chemicals and tools and, beakers and emblemics and things. But he has more, because he's done that, it's freed up part of the monthly allowance for things like fine wine, which he has mulled with nice spices and asks if you'd all like to take the bite out of the winter chill.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, all right.
So, very expensive bottle of wine. Like, imagine if you were grown up and then you got stuck in a situation like the kid from Home Alone.
Yeah.
That's how Tom Wolfe is living right now. However,
All right.
the next floor up, there is a circular iron contraption bolted into place above the spiral staircase on Tom Wolfe's level that he knows from experience, having worked here with Mad Metal in the past, is locked, and he has not endeavored too hard to open it up. So he has no access to the top floor of the building.
All right, that seems like step 3. It might be involved in step 2.
He tells you that virtually nobody has information on what happened to the guy. He's a little bit of a recluse. He's known to never leave his shop if he can help it. Like, he kind of he gets offended if there's a situation where he has to leave his shop. Like, traveling out and running errands is beneath him. Meeting clients face to face is not the kind of work that he's interested in doing.
All right.
So it's not like he had standing obligations that he just didn't show up for. It was actually some period of time before anybody realized he was gone.
Here's step 1 and 2 then, as I see.
Okay.
All right, step 1, we check his paperwork. We see if there's anything in there about new clients, new work, things that he might have dipped out on. Tom, you don't look like you've been reading a lot of papers.
That I've already done.
Fantastic. Step 1, cross it off the list.
And he tells you that after you've kicked your boots off, and he shows you this very pleasant device that you just set your boot in it, and then you kind of set a winch on either side, so a vice kind of grabs the side of your boot, and then the whole machine vibrates at just the right frequency that the mud and dirt just fall off, leaving your boots in pristine condition without having to shine them.
Okay, yeah, step 2 is looking more likely at the moment, but let's continue with step 1.
And he tells you he'll take you down into the basement to show you what he thinks Mad Metal had been working on.
Sure.
Does anybody else have anything to do, or are we just ready to go down to the basement now?
I mean, I'm assuming Seeker also wants to see if we can figure out how to get into the upper floors. It doesn't sound like the priority.
Yeah, I think that's step 3, which might be involved in step 2. Step 2 is figuring out if he made some sort of clock that was too good and he got trapped in time.
Tom Wolfe says it's not a thing that happens. You can't get trapped in a time loop. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Seeker's been looking around this place, and he's thinking that the odds of making too good of clock are going up at the moment.
So Seeker, going downstairs, you realize to get to the staircase, you have to walk in between two mirrors that are facing each other.
Yeah, and Seeker points that out. Like that's
That's the kind of thing you
Exhibit
don't wanna
A
see.
right
No.
there.
Nothing
Seeker's
like that.
red flag.
He's
Red flag.
and walking by Wolf's Tom's own shop, looking in, you can see where this room was like a storage closet at one point, and Tom has repurposed it into his own workshop. So he's still doing some kind of his own experiments or some of his own work while he's here. He tells you, though, that he has really good evidence that his mentor is still alive. That kind of doesn't make sense to him, but he's hoping perhaps you can make more sense of it.
And Seeker mouths Exhibit B over his shoulder to Alex.
And so, as you're going down the staircase, going back down to the main shop, he addresses Alex, and he says, surely there are times where you have mechanical devices where you have difficulty getting the right angle, getting up underneath it with your tool. Like, you have to get a wrench to grip a nut that's just out of reach. Like, your arm doesn't bend that way.
Right.
Well, my master, Lang McDohl, had a very novel solution to this problem. And as he opens the door in the floor of the shop that goes down into the basement, which he has the key for, and the door retracts in this circular pattern, like it belongs on a starship. The stairs continue downward. You travel down what feels like 2 floors, because you descend through what's just this brick vertical tunnel at first into this cavernous basement area. And you can feel the differences in temperature. On your left-hand side, if you reach out over the stairs, you feel your fingers are reaching out into cold air. Or on the right-hand side, where you reach out, you can feel your fingers are touching warm air. Because there are certain chemicals and devices that have to be temperature controlled in different ways. And Tom speaks a command word, and light illuminates this large basement area. And Alex, you're looking out into, like, the world of imagination. It's fantastic. He has workshops of all different shapes and sizes. He has alchemical stocks that you could only dream of. He has mechanical creatures and objects and all sorts of things, different experiments. And Tom asks if you'd like the tour or if you want to get right to business.
I wouldn't mind the tour, but I'm assuming my companions might not be as interested in it. Maybe we can do that after we conclude our primary business.
Actually, I think the tour might end up being part of business, so I think getting a good rundown on what this stuff is supposed to do might be a good idea.
Tom looks delighted that 2 of you seem interested in the tour.
Lucius looks dubious, but he will defer to his companions on that.
Connor looks apprehensive, but he's okay with going on the tour.
Hey, Connor.
Yes, guys.
I think we should do some. I think we should split our forces a little bit, and maybe you and I should go to the bar that this other gentleman we're supposed to investigate goes to, like owns. What do you say?
All right, Gus. You gotta at least make an attempt at the bar, right? Because you are going to the right place.
Right. I'm going
Hey,
to.
remember that alchemy jug I made that could make infinite beer?
Yes.
I wonder if Mad Metal's ever thought of an upgrade to that.
And Tom Wolfe assures you that he has. In fact, one of the first things he shows you is a steel defender built by Mad Metal that just makes Scrappy look like a complete piece of crap. Like iPhone 1 level obsolete. This thing is pristine. It's made out of silver and titanium alloys. It has 4 different kinds of retractable claws. He shows you different kind of visors that come up over its eyes, so it can see in the dark, or see through certain kinds of material, or see into the ethereal plane. It has a cloaking feature, which makes it kind of meld into invisibility.
He made the dog from the RoboCop cartoon.
Seeker, make an Arcana check.
You got it.
Being
Meanwhile,
a
Connor looks
wizard.
at Gus and just shrugs helplessly, a shrug that says, "It sounded like a good idea to me, but
I mean, Seeker was being honest. He thought that it was the right place. That is a 14.
14. Watching some of the demonstrations on this Steel Defender, which Tom knows some of the command words to execute, but not all of them. Like, he's not able to give this thing orders the way Alex is to Scrappy. But you're seeing really excellent Artificer work on display, but there is no small amount of gnomish magic woven up in this thing either.
Great.
He tells you that one of the big problems in Blue Wyrm that's always been an issue here, probably because of the wellspring of magic that the founders perhaps inadvertently created when they started planting in this soil. The problem is that the film between the prime material world and the surrounding planes gets very, very thin. So it's very easy to slip into the workshop from like the ethereal or the astral or even the Feywild. So he's developed this, and he goes up to a panel on the wall that's just this triangular panel. It's about 3 feet to a side. And Tom Wolf goes up, and there's a specialized wand next to it that he moves in an arcane way. And the panel takes on this green sheen. And he says, when it's in this state, no fairy creature can pass through it. And then he does another motion, and it turns a deep blue. And he says, in this state, no non-corporeal undead entity can pass through. And he has a third shape, and it takes on this silvery sheen. It says, and in this state, no ethereal creature can pass through. So I wanted to ask, and he turns to Alex. So I think this is one of the things he was working on most recently. Closer to his abduction. And I'm wondering why the whole workshop isn't scaled up with this same paneling. Perhaps such a thing is beyond even his resources. I was hoping I could get another set of eyeballs on it.
Well, that is interesting. I guess it might still be a prototype? How long has that been part of the workshop?
He tells you it was here when he arrived. And he doesn't know anything about how long Mad Metal had been constructing it. Just that some of the notes in his in one of his workshop journals lists the most recent dates with this particular device. Tom Wolf has done experiments with it, like he's had druids summon fairies and try to fly through it, and they can't pass through. If you have an area that is an entrance to the Feywild and you cover it with this sort of panel, it essentially blocks it off. Fey creatures cannot come through. And then it has a second configuration for essentially ghosts and undead. And then a third one for ethereal thieves and such.
Well, it doesn't seem that useful for protecting any area because it still leaves the other two openings open. So it seems more like it's some sort of sealing or trapping sort of device.
This seems incredible. I love it. Can I take it with me?
Connor's like, can I just have a cloak made out of this so I can just wrap myself around it?
Is it portable? Like, can we make a shield out of it?
Right now, it's about the size of a very large shield, but the shape would make it very unwieldy. It's about 3 feet to a side, and it's triangular. But, I mean, it's affixed to the wall by sitting in this kind of wooden rack that he's constructed. So, I mean, Tom picks it up with some difficulty. It's fairly heavy, but it's portable. He's able to move it. I think he says he thinks the idea is if you streamline the construction of these, you could panel them together over like an arbitrary shape or space.
So we, theoretically, could be protected from fey creatures at all times, as an example.
And
if we were inside it.
Because as long as the magic on the device holds, and as long as it's in that particular configuration.
Would it be more or less potent than like a protection from good and evil spell? Do you think?
He tells you that all he knows about it for sure, based on his mentor's journals and the experiments he's done, is that a creature in the Feywilds cannot pass through the physical boundary of this plane if it's in that configuration. A creature in the Shadowfell cannot pass through it in the second, and a creature in the Ethereal cannot pass through it in the third.
Is there a spot where... Do you think he could have been making this to prevent something from coming through?
Maybe he got caught up in it when he was working on it, and he was somehow stuck.
I'm kind of on Alex's side.
He tells you, with any luck, there will not be an expedition into the Feywild or Shadowfell. That would be more dangerous than even he's expecting.
Agreed.
He brings you over to a workbench, and he shows you why he knows his master is still alive. And there are 2 hooks above the workbench. You see the tools arranged on the bench itself are meticulously done. Mostly mundane tools, but you see where a work journal is sitting on there, written in extremely tiny hand. So you could fit thousands of days of work into this journal. The journal looks like the only thing on the table that's been disturbed recently. Hanging above it, there are 2 hooks, and each hook has a metal dangling device on it, from which are 2 twitching human arms.
Burying the lead, huh?
So he tells you at some point his mentor figured out a way, and he takes one of the arms off, and you can see the reaction in the arm. Like, imagine your arm getting grabbed and how you might try to pull away. That's kind of the reaction you see, but he has no difficulty taking it down, manipulating it. And he rotates the arm over, and you can feel that it's warm. It has blood flowing through it. And he shows you the edge of it, where just below the shoulder is put into this metal device. And he tells you, I believe that inside this device, which I have not endeavored to remove, of course, but he believes it is a type of portal through which your arm can be placed and then retracted at a later date. So through this method, my master would not have had to actually sever his arm, but I worry that if I remove the arm from the device, I would do so. I also worry that if he were to travel to another plane of existence without his arms, it would also sever the connection. So wherever he is, he does not have the function of his arms.
I mean, is it possible he just replaced them with better arms?
That sounds like something Alex would do, yes.
He's looked through his journals and his work notes for the past few years. Excuse me. Looking for projects to that extent, and did not find anything of note.
So the arm reacted as though he grabbed somebody's arm?
Yeah, because wherever Mad Metal is, his arm just got grabbed as he pulled it off the rack.
Seeker goes over to the arm and opens its hand up, and just with his finger writes, "?Are you?" and then puts the arm's finger on his palm.
And as you're doing this, the fingers in the palm are resisting at every step of the way. And the rest of you see Tom kind of taking a step back and watching this. Says, yeah, I've tried that too. And I've found that for whatever reason, my stubborn mentor has resisted any attempts of communication through that way. I've also been unable to reach him using sending or several other types of magical divinations, including putting considerable resources into hiring a cleric from the temple. Magical, mechanical, and divine means have all failed to reach him. He says, please be careful with that.
Seeker nods. Covert high five.
Do you make Mad Metal's arm and like the crazy lich arm high five? You're collecting a lot of arms is what's happening here.
Listen, you have to specialize in order to be an expert.
So he tells you that there is another clockwork magician who works out of Blue Wyrm, who is known to be one of Mad Metal's rivals. It says her name is Geraldine Stormling. Alex, Stormling is a name that you would know as you purchase components and things through your blacksmith contact in Dunfoss. A lot of these originate from Stormling's industry here in Blue Wyrm. Geraldine and her entourage traveled north many months ago in order to give assistance to the war against the undead in the far north. This would have been even before... no, this would have been just after he arrived in town. He's tried to sneak into her compound in town to see if there's a connection, but her shop and her grounds look very much like his mentor's does. He knows his mentor's secrets and how to get in and safely occupy the space. He assures you that somebody who didn't would have a very, very bad time here. And there is notes he shows you in the work journal of go-betweens between Mad Metal and Stormling. Some of the last few entries are Mad Metal pontificating on how he can be rid of this nuisance forever, etc., etc. He's wondering if his mentor is being kept in a magically shielded room inside of Stormling's compound. And this is where he's hit the blinds, because he can't go any further than this. Stormling's no longer in town. He can't find anybody who's willing to give assistance as far as breaking into the shop. The local thieves and whatnot in Blue Wyrm know better than to break into that shop. And he's kind of out of ideas until something else shakes loose.
Does your mentor seem like the kind of person who would get stuck there and then refuse assistance because he could make his own way out?
Yes, in a word.
Okay, great, cool.
What I'm mostly worried about, and he motions to the arm that you're still holding in his hand, is it's difficult to operate machinery or pick locks or climb a rope if you don't have, well, you know.
Arms.
And that's where it stands right now.
Okay.
Alright, so our Artificer has disarmed himself. He's stuck in some sort of box.
Well, your Artificer hasn't.
That's true.
I think I'd like to review all of those contracts just to see if there's anything you missed, Tom.
And he tells you he'll go help you go over them, but it'll take the better part of an evening. There's quite a lot of things that he's working on.
That's far, and I believe there's a bar you guys need to investigate, right?
Right.
Yep.
So, Alex, you're not going to the bar with the your companions?
Alright,
I'll send
Alex,
Scrappy.
I saw some magic in that beast upstairs, though. So if you decide you want to start investigating that door, send for me first.
Sure. I'll give Scrappy a standing order to stay next to Seeker.
Okay.
Gus, on the way out, turns around and looks at Alex and says, Alex.
Yeah.
It is a bad idea to do that to your arms. Regardless of what great idea you have, you shouldn't, do this.
I mean, I'm mostly thinking about the possible applications for helping people who won't use their arms otherwise.
No.
Come on, you don't think it would be good if your arm gets necrotically wilted or something to put it in the portal and slap a golem's arm on there?
At least don't do both at the same time, Alex. One at a time.
Huh. I never thought about that. How good would a third arm be?
There you go. See, we're already having better ideas.
I think that's actually one of the things that the Alchemist class can do in Pathfinder First Edition. It's at level 17, they just grow another arm or something.
Right.
I might be misremembering. It's a long time, but then you can hold 3 beakers at once.
Warforged Prestige class that lets you graft extra limbs onto your body.
Nice.
Do that, I forget, the guy that, the character from the Mandalorian that has that little arm that just comes up off his shoulder with a gun.
Dr. Octavius.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. I'll do that now. So,
Okay, you gotta.
the only other piece of information that he really has about Geraldine Stormling, and Stormling's enterprise in general, because, of course, while he was apprenticed here, he was completely forbidden from dealing with a woman at all.
Mm-hmm.
She's human, but she's apparently lived and operated here far beyond a typical human lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, her shop has been open and has not been taken over by children or by apprentices. It's like it's been her working it for a good 60 or 70 years. So he doesn't think the woman is human. And it's a moot point anyway because she's not currently in town. She and her entourage have gone north to fight this war.
Okay.
So you're spending the evening with Tom going over some contracts and things.
Yeah, basically any paperwork I can get my hands on for the last, I don't know, 2 years before it disappeared.
And it's a lot of the same kind of stuff that you imagine you would be doing in Dunfoss if that was your primary enterprise and not this detective service. Dragon powder is in much greater supply and in much wider use in Blue Wyrm. A lot of farming equipment as well is done more mechanically than would be done in and around Dunfoss. And a lot of this equipment, if you're wealthy enough, requires routine maintenance. So a good 70 to 80% of his work is this kind of thing. Going out, or not himself, but sending people out to these family farms just to maintain equipment, to fix up magical or mechanical objects. Every now and then there's a big ticket item, very often from Kiska. Particular things. Gladiator weapons are very, very common amongst these types of orders. Strange mechanical transforming weapons are very popular in Kiska.
How does the shipping to Kiska work? How's that listed?
It doesn't.
There's no cost for shipping listed?
There is not. Hold on, I have to look up a code word here.
Sure.
For some reason, I didn't put all the information for Mad Metal's workshop in one text file, and now I have to find the other text file.
All right, please tell us the name of that file.
Cheeseburger.txt.
It's listed as location for shipping to Kiska, is only listed as car. That's it. Sometimes there's a price associated, sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's instructions for particular shipping instructions, like if a box cannot be rotated or it has to be maintained at a certain temperature. But it's very consistently listed as car.
Does Tom know anything about that?
He tells you that there's some way of moving goods back and forth between Kiska without having to use overland or oversea resources. But more than that, he does not know. It's kind of an open secret in Blue Wyrm that it's possible, but few people know the trick.
Last question: does Dragon Powder require a license here, and does any of the other stuff that he's dealing in require any sort of special licensing or church permission or anything like that?
No, in fact, there's not really a central governing body to issue those kinds of licenses. So it's kind of like the Wild West out here.
Okay.
Once in a while, not often, but maybe once or twice a year, there is some kind of magical catastrophe in the city. Like a wizard's lab will melt down in acid, or something will get summoned in from somewhere and it burns down a farm. These kind of things happen more often here than they would in Dunfoss.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where, like, living in Blue Wyrm is just something you put up with from time to time.
Okay.
Your next door neighbor is a level 18 sorcerer. This kind of shit's going to go down. So that's the kind of things that you and he are going over throughout the evening. Notably, it doesn't look like he does a lot of business to and from Dunfoss, though. and the rest of you are going to the Janjkar. Lucius.
Yes.
Janjkar is a sand elf liquor that is strongly associated with pyromancers. Amongst the sand elf civilizations, there are strong cults of the old sorcerer kings, many of which are very strong in fire magic. This is probably not a liquor you've had yourself, but you probably know enough about it that it's probably something that's not really safe to drink a lot of in great quantities.
Mm-hmm.
So going to the Janjkar. The Janjkar is the name of the tap house that sits in Kinzeros's manor. His manor is inside of the outer circle of Blue Wyrm, so it's in the outer wall, but not in the wall with the cathedral. And it's this beautiful, it's only a one-story manor, but it's sprawling. It has gardens all along. His actual land he maintains to look like a forest with trees growing up all around it. So there's an outer gate inside of which is this forest territory, and then this large courtyard that wraps around the whole manor. The front of the manor, the entrance here, and then some of the side rooms are open to the public. That's where he maintains his tap room. It's a one-floor manor, but you do have this kind of second seating floor. If you go up these stairs, you're going up to a floor that overlooks the two tap rooms on either side. North through this hallway, when you come in, flanked on either side are beautiful suits of armor, made in the Romnean style of Sand Elves. And one of these suits of armor also stands directly here in the center of the hallway leading north. It's just understood that beyond that point is Kinzeros's private quarters, and it's not open to the public.
Okay.
You guys are arriving probably early afternoon. Or did you wait until... Well, you would have spent most of the afternoon with Wolf. So you're arriving about early evening. So
Yep.
People are beginning to spend their evenings here. It's a fairly upscale place. And what's next?
All right, so can we give just a quick rundown on the guy who owns this place bought the log?
The idea is that Kinzeros he purchased the
ship's manifest.
The ship
right?
manifest, yes.
Mm-hmm.
He purchased it at auction for an undisclosed amount of money.
Mhm.
Kinzeros is a sand elf, so he has relatively bizarre and eccentric tastes. He's also known to be a retired adventurer. The decoration as you go in the manor is just from a lifetime of just amassing things on various quests and adventures that he's been on.
All right, in that case, I think
I think
everyone's here but Alex.
Alex has sent Scrappy along with you.
Right.
And when you guys move through Dunfoss with Scrappy, you get a lot of turned heads, and you still do here, but you're also seeing here and there, out and about, steel defenders of other artificers moving along through Blue Wyrm. They're just more common on the streets here.
This guy seems relatively big league, so I don't think we want to start anything.
No, probably not.
Can you locate object for a... This is also a very big house. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Well, it's his entire manor house. It's only one floor, but he's completely renovated the front half of it into a tap house, an eating establishment.
And no, yeah, I think that's the first step, Gus, is let's just see if it's even here or if he has some sort of magic protection for it.
Also, like, Gus is from the desert originally, so he'd probably know what this alcohol is.
Okay.
And Gus wants nothing to do with this stuff. It is the worst.
Have you had it?
I would say that, yes, Gus has had it.
It's incredibly acrid, and it's a bit like drinking liquid charcoal. The
Right.
kind of stuff they pump into your stomach to make you vomit. Except imagine if that was also alcoholic.
Gross.
Are these 5 foot squares?
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually. Are there actually squares here?
Yeah, they're
That
really
look-
small.
Oh no, that's just the pattern of the rug. Figure this is like a 10-foot entryway though.
Okay,
So Lucius here would be on like a 5-foot square. That's about right.
that's about right. All right, got it.
Like
So,
one of these
you know,
suits of
and we're
armor
not-
takes up 5 feet.
Uh-huh.
We have to know, where the squares are when we inevitably start the bar brawl.
Right.
Well, we're
Really
not
bad
starting
that you
shit,
didn't.
right? As
That's
a directive.
That's
definitely
that's the
not
plan.
without Alex. Yeah, but I think just to start off, let's, before even going in, do a quick locate object to see if I can find the ship's manifest within 1,000 feet.
So what exactly are you casting the spell trying to find? Like how do you?
I'm describing a ship's manifest belonging to the ship, and then what was the name of it? Adric's Honor.
Yeah.
So that's my description.
Okay. Bear with me just 1 second. You get a ping from your spell in one of the side rooms on the first floor in this area.
Oh, are those open to the public?
Yes, everything you see that's not dark would be a room you could go into.
All right, then yeah, I think we walk around. We don't make it obvious what our goal is, but I'll tell everyone where it is before we go in. But let's look through some of the side rooms.
As you
We're
enter,
tourists.
it's only a few moments before you're approached by a very cheerful halfling woman that welcomes you to Jianjkar, asks if you would be partaking in the evening meal.
Sure.
I don't see why not.
She starts
Absolutely.
to motion you over into this area here. So passing through this area, you see several other halfling women moving back and forth between these doors here and the main feast hall. Carrying trays, very cheerful, greeting you as you go. The room off to your left here is a private dining room, which is currently closed. As you come in here, fine elven music fills the room, as there is a harpist and a singer on a wooden raised platform at the north edge of the room. Who would get a check here? I'll make a history check. Lucius, I'll let you make this at advantage.
$15 here.
Mm-hmm. Can anybody beat 15?
Oh, does everybody get a check?
If you want.
Sorry, my character sheet was derping. It's a 14.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. I might have that beat.
Trouble
Uh-oh.
crushing it.
Rolled a 19, so plus 20, so 20 total.
Wow.
On die.
So
Not on die, but like 20 total.
one of the magic schools in Gunfoss is Linus's college, which is a college of bards and merrymakers, people who weave magic into song. It's one of the newest colleges that was set up. And in Dunfoss, it's not particularly well regarded or respected. However, in Blue Wyrm, Linus Harpstring has a huge opera house. And it looks like the coloration, and even though they're singing in Elven, you can see they're wearing finery that is much more lavish version of what you've seen in the streets of Dunfoss, members of this college wearing. And you wonder if the harpist and the singer are on loan from the opera house.
Okay.
I think this is the fanciest place that I've ever been in, Lucius.
Well, behave yourself now. We don't want to embarrass ourselves, no?
And they're serving fine elven cuisine, by which I mean vegetarian.
Ugh.
When the server comes by,
Mhm.
I'll say, we keep assuring our companion here that we're not adventurers, but we have run into that sort of issue in the past. Do you ever take offers for the artifacts on display?
And you're asking this of one of the halfling employees?
Yeah.
And she tells you that she personally, with like a titter in her voice, that she personally isn't privy to Kanziros's dealings when it comes to buying and selling artifacts. But he does a good business with auctioneering.
Okay.
He's even had, in the past, the honor of presiding over major auctions here in Blue Wyrm. And once or twice in Kiska, if she's not mistaken.
Okay.
She asks if there is an offer you'd like to pass along discreetly.
Not yet. We were hoping to go around the artifacts after eating. If you could get someone to give us a tour.
She tells you that there's not really a tour available, but there is a small museum room open to the public, and it's in the room that you pinged earlier with your magic.
Fantastic.
And there are pieces on display inside the tap house rooms as well. A lot of weapons and armor, primarily, but other little treasures and knickknacks that he's accumulated over the years. I'll let you all spend between 2 silver and 2 gold, depending on how lavishly you would like to eat and drink here.
I'm going to buy everybody else at the table that alcohol, but none for Gus.
Okay, so you're spending 2 gold.
I was just about to ask how much was that rancid alcohol supposed to be.
So the place is named for that, but they're not actually known for serving it because nobody.
Oh,
they do stock it, but
let's
it's
fix that.
fairly expensive. So who's drinking this stuff?
Seeker will try it, but just a small amount.
Same with Lucius.
Connor is not afraid of any alcohol.
It's like Gus is going to look at Seeker like, no, you have to throw it all back or you're going to choke and die.
Seeker says he'll throw a small amount of it back and then throw the rest out.
He's
That's
gonna
a party foul.
throw out really expensive alcohol.
I'll split one with you, Gus. You can have the rest.
Gus looks and he says, "I will deny this if you ever tell anybody that I said this, but I'm not drinking that."
Really, Gus?
I've had it before. It's not good,
Okay.
but it's an experience. You must, you know.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's
So-
an experience.
It's alcohol. How bad could it be?
3 of you are served shots of the gin car. And they're served in just these small crystal shot glasses. You all get the same amount, even though one of you is a gnome.
Yeah.
Lucius, you have no difficulty getting this down. It's probably not pleasant, because you're used to drinking standard ale and coffee and wines and such. Connor and Seeker, I will need a Constitution saving throw.
Constitution saving throw.
Is it against magic?
No, it's against
It
liquor.
doesn't matter. I don't get that anyway.
It's not like the beer jelly you ordered in the last campaign.
Yeah.
That's a 14.
14.
That is a 21.
Nice. As soon as this stuff hits the back of your tongue, you regret putting it in your face. It is the flavor almost isn't worth mentioning. The problem is it's so incredibly acrid. It's like drinking fire. Like if you scooped up the remnants of a campfire and diluted it in just the harshest beer you could imagine. And you manage to choke it down, but it's not a pleasant experience. And it also doesn't get you that drunk. Like, it doesn't have immediate effects. You think a nice tall glass of particularly strong elven wine would be more to your liking if you were going to get nice and toasty tonight.
Seeker taps on the table, looks at Gus, and just says, "Why?"
Lucius coughs. Lucius
And
coughs,
Connor-
and Lucius coughs and says, "Whew, that'll put some hair in your chest."
And Connor doesn't say anything, but just nods furiously, agreeing with Seeker.
Gus smiles, says, "Well, I told you it was an experience."
You didn't say that.
Anyway, let's go take a look at their artifacts.
Because you've managed to keep it down, you all get a T-shirt saying you survived the Ginge card. They put your picture on the wall.
Yeah.
Tieflings don't get to go. That's a gimme.
Wants to make his way over to the display room.
Okay, so there's an entrance to this room. So this is like the main tap room. If you're just here to drink, they have a circular bar area here. It's also a very large dance floor. And standing in this room, you can hear the music being produced in the other tap room, although the mechanism for doing so is not obvious. And there's also a door here to this other private sitting room, which is currently occupied, and you're not allowed in.
Interesting.
This room is a small museum area where Kanzeros puts on a rotating basis some of his most prized treasures. And in the center of the room, you see, under a large crystal box, is a replica of the ship Adric's Honor. And the front of it, you see the prow is this fist, as this ship is known to just fist the ocean.
That's what you're going with, huh?
That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
I mean, that's what the ship's going with.
The original founders of Blue Wyrm, the first people that put down roots in this soil and built the original inn at this crossroads that eventually grew into this large city. It's very welcoming of ideas from outsides and connection to other worlds, and is very attractive to especially magicians and tinkerers of all kinds. Did a lot of their earliest adventuring aboard the actual vessel, which has been lost now, but this replica had been built at one point. And you can see that Kanzeros is a collector of essentially memorabilia of these people. And in front of the little display ship is a second smaller crystal box, crystal casing, where the ship's manifest sits, closed on the front, but with Adric's Honor stitched on the front leather of it, and next to it has been placed a red and black quill. So you're not actually allowed to touch anything, but it looks like the manifest is just out for display.
Is the I'm gonna attempt to move a little closer to the manifest.
Okay.
Detecting magic on it. Is the manifest magical?
Are you casting it, or are you using it as a ritual? Oh, you don't have to. We changed how detect magic work.
Yeah, we changed that, yeah.
The crystal boxes that encase the display pieces are radiating abjuration magic.
That makes sense.
And a few smaller pieces on the wall are as well. Mild abjurations, which you take to basically mean if you try to just discreetly lift up this box, something bad would happen. Not only that, but the door into this room from the main tap room cannot be closed. It's open from the tap room, and a chain is affixed to the inside handle to a loop in the wall. So people can just look in and see what's going on in here.
But not the manifest itself?
The manifest itself sits under one of these glass casings that has abjuration magic applied to it.
Right. Okay, I'm starting to get a play here then in mind. Can I get a ruling from you, Brickroad, on something? There's a spell in the player's handbook called Fabricate.
Mm-hmm.
It says you can't use it to create items that ordinarily require a high degree of craftsmanship, such as jewelry, weapons, glass, or armor, unless you have proficiency with the type of artisan schools used to craft such objects.
Okay.
Could I then use Fabricate to create a forgery, since I have forgery proficiency?
You would need some kind of leatherworking skill to actually make the volume.
Right.
And without knowing what it says inside, your forgery wouldn't be able to apply. Like, you don't actually know the contents of the book.
Right, but if I knew the contents of the book and I had like paper and ink, say, I could.
I would say
paper and ink.
if you have the appropriate leather crafting, you could make the outside look believable with this spell, no question. And that at that point, I would think the actual contents of the book would just be the icing on the cake. Like that, just putting a fabricated knockoff in place might buy you enough time to get free of the city with the real thing.
Yeah, I'm also just concerned though of having like the information inside of it. So that's why I'm saying like, could I use this to like, if I read the book, could I make another version of the like at least the pages so I had the contents?
Let's see here. Probably not quickly, because the book is rather thick. You would need some alone time with it. It's too much to commit to memory unless you have a feat or something that allows you to do that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Is your goal to make a knockoff to put in here while you abscond with the real one, or is your goal to make a copy that you can then give to 10 sales? What's the...
I think the second one, because my thinking is if the knowledge inside the book is what's valuable, maybe what we can do then is we know. It seems to me, and I'll run this guy by the others because like I'm coming up with this plan as I go.
Yeah.
That this guy has a interest in this ship and the people who crewed it because he has made this like big themed room. We happen to know some stuff about the adventures of the people on this ship that he has no way of knowing. We have been to the Angry Octagon.
It was a good try. I like it.
We've been to the Angry Octagon, and we have a bunch of like content that he just has no way of knowing that we could share with him in exchange for him allowing us some time with this book.
Okay.
I think that seems like a good play to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, we need to get to know the man himself first.
Is he here? Or did he leave? Or was that somebody else that left? Went to the war on the north?
No,
That was someone else.
That was Stormling.
Yeah.
Kenziro's, he's an elf, which means he'll live forever. He's not old, but he's retired, is your understanding. And he kind of runs his tap house, his establishment, more or less as a hobby now. He doesn't actually he probably does make a good fair amount of money on it, but he probably doesn't need it to survive. It's more just showing off his lifetime of accomplishments.
So if we can get that access, we have two plays. Essentially, we send a message off to 10 sales. We say, hey, we can get you the contents of this journal, no problem. If that's what he wants, mission accomplished. If it's not what he wants, then we move on to plan B, swapping it with a copy of the book.
Plan B, theft.
Are you guys doing anything else here right now, or just a kind of reconnaissance to kind of get a feel for the place?
I think we do a recon, and then maybe we send him, after talking over with Alex, we just send him a message, essentially saying, like, hey, we are people who know a lot about somebody that he seems to have a lot of interest in, and we'd like to make a trade.
Okay. Lucius and Gus, make me a history
Yes.
check, please. You can make this at advantage, both of you.
20.
Gus, you're only looking for
10.
DC 10.
10.
Something that's very, very noticeable about what you've been in here. Looking at the forest that he's obviously has outside on his manor, and all of the gardens that he maintains on the grounds, as well as the food, which was, it was vegetarian, so it's not something that a normal person would ever eat. But it's done all in the style of Sylvan elves. It's almost as though he's doing a bit of cultural appropriation here. He's a sand elf. This is not the kind of food that he had grown up eating. This is not the kind of landscape that he had grown up appreciating. So you're getting that vibe from him as well, having both of you having spent time across the sea.
So he probably prefers this climate to the deserts of Rondaeus.
Probably. The desert sucks.
Who wouldn't? So are we done here for now, or is there anything else you'd like to do while you're here?
I think we're done for now.
Okay.
Unless we
Yeah, I
can
think we're
somehow get an audience with the guy now, maybe.
Well, I thought you had to talk it over with Alex first. We'll see.
Oh, right. That works too.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a break then. We'll take a 15-minute break. Go ahead and get your coffee, get your bagel. I'll put Lizagirth on screen here. We'll reconvene at about just before 4:28. Anybody not back by 4:28 gets thrown out the airlock.